Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Windwitch Invoked deck profile. And the really cool thing about this deck is it's actually a Patreon request deck profile by Txne. So you guys have probably seen some really interesting decks requested by Txne, like Car Curry and this deck, and a couple of other really neat decks that they've actually requested on the channel. And I'm really excited to bring this one to you guys because I really think I've outdone myself with this particular deck. It does some really insane stuff, and it is super consistent. I would totally not hesitate to carry this to a locals or a regionals and actually compete with this deck because it is literally that insane. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below so you can get awesome rewards like getting your name in the description for every single video, getting signed cards in the mail, or even getting requested deck profile just like this one every single month that you're a patron, along with test hands just like Txne did. So let's get straight on into this. So the really cool thing is Txne was just like, hey, make me a Windwitch deck. And I was like, what do you want me to fuse it with? And they're like, anything you want, just make me a Windwitch deck. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So let's get into this one for Txne. Definitely give Txne some love down in the comments, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Windwitch Ice Spell. So Windwitch Ice Spell is a card that you want to get to as quickly as possible in this deck to be able to get out your copies of your Windwitch Winterbell and get out the copy of Crystal Wing onto your side of the field as quickly as possible. And if you control no monsters, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and then you can also use the effect to inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent if this card is special summoned. And she also has a really neat effect that if this card is normal or special summoned, that you get to add a special summon a Windwitch monster from your deck, which is super good because we're going to be able to special summon from our deck a copy of Windwitch Glassbell. So Glassbell has a really cool effect that if she's normal or special summoned, then you get to add a Windwitch monster from your deck to your hand, which is always going to be a copy of Windwitch Snowbell. Snowbell, if you control 2 or more monsters, which you will when you search her, you can special summon her out from your hand as a tuner level 1 monster, which is really cool to be able to use as a synchro material to go into a copy of Wind Pegasus, to climb into a copy of Crystal Wing, which is really, really, really nice to be able to just get that monster out on your side of the field. The reason I play her at 2 is because we play so many different cards in this deck that is really easy to actually climb into multiple synchro monsters, which is really nice about this deck. So you want to play them at this particular ratio until we get the new support in the TCG, but it's not coming out until Blazing Vortex. So this is the only main deck monsters that we actually have for Windwitches at the moment. So for the other cards that we're playing that are tech cards in the deck, to really drive this Windwitch kind of theme home, we're playing 3 copies of Wind the Wind Channeler. This card is an insane new card that lets you discard this card and one other wind monster in your hand to add a wind monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand, except another copy of herself. And then she also has a really neat effect that when a wind monster you control is destroyed by battle, while this card is in your hand, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is really good to be able to get an additional monster out on your side of the field. And she's really good at helping you search all sorts of different cards that are in the deck, like your copy of your Ice Spell and your Glass Spell and the other cards that you really need to go into first turn. We then play 2 copies of Ranryu. Ranryu is really good too because this card has a really neat effect that if you control a spellcaster type monster, that you can special summon this card from your hand. It helps out with rank 4 plays and link plays as well. And this also has the ability that if this card is sent to the graveyard, then you get to target 1 monster with 1500 attack and 200 defense in your graveyard, except another copy of Ranryu and special summon it, which is going to be really nice once we get Charmer support. We then play a single copy of Tempest Dragon Ruler of Storms. Dragon Ruler of Storms is really good in this deck because once you go ahead and use this to go into a Crystal Wing, you can just banish 2 of your materials that you used in the graveyard to be able to special summon out a copy of the Tempest and use it as a material for a link play or another synchro play if you need to, or go into any particular play that you particularly need with this card. It's just another 2400 body that you can summon on your side of the field. We then play my personal deck for this deck, and that is 3 copies of Fairy Tale Luna. This card is insane for this deck because it actually lets you search the Wind Channeler, which is pretty good because it has 1850 attack. If you guys notice this, the Wind Channeler has 1850 attack, and the copy of Fairy Tale Luna also has 1850 attack. But why is that significant? Because Fairy Tale Luna has a really neat effect that when this card is normal summon, you get to add 1 spellcaster type monster with 1850 attack from your deck to your hand. Really good effect, huh? You normal summon this, you search the Wind, and then you discard the Wind and a Wind monster from your hand like Tempest. You search your copy of Windwitch Glass Spell or Ice Spell. I always mix these up, Ice Spell. And then once you search the Ice Spell, when you bounce a card with your copy of Fairy Tale Luna, then you can put this on your side of the field and go into Crystal Wing again. So you've searched it essentially off the copy of Fairy Tale Luna, which is a really good play. It's because this card also has the ability that you can target, during either player's turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and your opponent can send one card from their deck or extra deck to the graveyard to negate this effect. Otherwise, you bounce this card to your hand and you bounce the opponent's card to their hand. So you usually want to hit a card that you know is a one-of that your opponent has. We then play 2 copies of Artifact Scythe. Artifact Scythe is just a really good 2-of in this deck for me, because you don't want to overclog with the amount of stuff that you're playing in this deck. So the 2 Scythe is perfect for me to just be able to special summon off the copy of Sanctum to lock my opponent down, because if you can get an Artifact Sanctum on your side of the field and a copy of Fairy Tale Luna, even if you just do something as simple as that with this particular deck, you can bounce a card that they normal summon, and you can kind of get it where they can't special summon from the extra deck as well, which is really, really, really nice. I love that, being able to do that. We then play 3 copies of Alistair the Invoker for the Invoker engine, which is really good to be able to normal summon and search out a copy of your invocation. For the 3 hand traps, we play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. The 3 Ash Blossoms come in handy just to stop our opponent from all sorts of shenanigans, but that's pretty much it for the monsters. So let's get into the spells, guys. I know this deck is all over the place. We're playing 4 different engines in this deck, if you guys want to notice. We're actually playing Windwitches. We're playing kind of like a Fairy Tale engine. We're playing the Artifact engine, and we're playing an Invoked engine. So you're actually playing 4 different engines in this deck, which is really cool, and they all flush together really, really well, because this searches your copy of the Channeler, so you can search out your Windwitch. Your Windwitch is the main focus of the deck. The Artifacts is a supporting factor to lock your opponent down, and then your copy of the Invoked engine is really good because it can help you get out stuff like your Ragin and your Makaba, or even Purgatrio, so you can OTK your opponent. So you have just some really good plays in this deck, which is really nice. So for the spells, we're going to be playing 7 spells in this deck, which we're going to be playing a single copy of Called by the Grave, just to stop our opponent from doing hand traps and stuff like that. 3 copies of Invocation, so we can go into our invoked monsters, and 3 copies of Magical Meltdown. So Magical Meltdown, when it's activated, you get to add an Alistair from your deck to your hand, and then also it has the ability that the activation of cards and effects that include the effect to fusion summon a fusion monster cannot be negated. So basically makes your Invocation a speed spell 4, which is really, really good to be able to just stop it from being able to be, you know, ashed and stuff like that, or being able to just stop your opponent from all sorts of different plays that they're going to try and respond to it and negate it, like a Solemn Judgment or a Solemn Strike. So that's it for the spells. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're actually playing 9 traps in this deck. So we're playing 3 copies of Trap Trick. Trap Trick is really good because it lets you banish a normal trap from your deck, and then you set the same card that you banished. Like, you set another copy of this card that you banished. So, like, for instance, if I banish Artifact Sanctum, I can set a Sanctum from my deck as well, which will thin the deck and also get me a Scythe out on my turn, which is pretty good. And you can activate the card the same turn that you set it, but you can only activate 1 trap after the resolution of Trap Trick. So you set the copy of Trap Trick, you banish a copy of Sanctum, set a Sanctum, flip the Sanctum, and then go for a Scythe, and it locks your opponent down, which is really good. And then we also play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, which you can grab the Infinite Impermanence off the copy of Trap Trick and then negate a face-up monster your opponent controls effects, which is pretty good. And it just helps out a lot because your opponent doesn't expect it. So it's just an overall really, really good lineup. Especially if you have a Sanctum set, you lock them out of extra deck first, and then you Infinite Impermanence them off the Trap Trick. They really don't have much to do, especially if I use Heroes as an example, but if they normal summon out of Stratos, you lock them out of the extra deck, they normal summon the Stratos out, and their turn's probably already over with the Scythe, but then you Infinite Impermanence the Search as well. They don't have a lot more that they can do. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Invoked Ragin. This card is basically a walking Book of Moon, which is really cool. It has an awesome effect that once returned during either player's turn, you can target a monster your opponent controls, or one face-up monster on the field, and change it to face-down defense. It's just Book of Moon, essentially, but it's really good at being able to stop certain plays. We then play 2 copies of Invoked Makaba. You discard either a monster, spell, or trap, whichever one you're trying to negate once per turn, and when you discard that card, then you get to negate the card and banish it, which is pretty good. good. You play a single copy of Purgatrio. It can attack every single monster your opponent controls. It gains 200 attack for each card your opponent controls, and it inflicts piercing damage. Really good, and combos really well with Ash Blossom as well. We play a single copy of Crystal Wing just to help us get the big boss out on our side of the field as quickly as possible. One copy of Windwitch Winterbell. Winterbell is a card that you use to climb into the copy of Crystal Wing, and we also have a copy of Wind Pegasus. Wind Pegasus is really good because you can summon the Wind Pegasus to your side of the field, and once you summon the Wind Pegasus to your side of the field and use it with a copy of Snowbell on your side of the field to summon out a Crystal Wing, then you can have this card in the graveyard, and when this card is in the graveyard, while this card's on the field or in the graveyard, you can banish this card and then target a card your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck, which is really good. We then have a single copy of Access Code Talker, which gets us multiple pops against our opponent and is really good overall at just being a big beat stick. Nightmare Unicorn, just to be able to bounce stuff. Phoenix to pop spells and traps. Alistair the Invoker of Madness, which is really easy to summon in this deck because you just have to use 2 monsters with different types and attributes, which we have so many of in this deck. One copy of Cross Sheep because we're fusion summoning so much in this deck, and it's really easy to actually go into the Cross Sheep. One copy of Secure Gardna, which we will go into after we summon the copy of Salamangreat Alamirage, because what you're going to want to normally do with this particular build is normal summon out the copy of your Alistair, and once you summon out the copy of Alistair, you will then search a copy of Invocation. You'll then link the copy of Alistair away, summon the Alamirage, and then link the Alamirage away for the Secure Gardna, and then you have the Light, the Fire, and you have the Fusion play right there to go into. The only thing I will really quickly note to you guys before we end the profile is that you really need to keep in mind that your Wind Witches do lock you into win plays. So you need to kind of watch out for that when you're playing this deck, because like your copy of Ragin is a really good card to go into. All of your Synchro monsters are really good to go into, but you kind of lock yourself out of Link monsters when you do go into the copy of the Windwitch engine, which is totally fine because usually on your first turn you don't need to Link summon anyways, and you can either draw into the copy of the Invoked package or you can draw into your Windwitch package, which you guys will see in test hands because there will be test hands up very, very, very soon because it comes with the Patreon package. So that's it for this particular deck. It's really, really fun. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I really hope Its Tone enjoys this because they requested this deck and was like, hey, just build something with Wind Witches in it, and I was like, okay, I can do that. And I wanted to build something that was competitive enough that they could carry to a locals or a regionals or something like that and really enjoy playing Wind Witches. And I feel like this was the best. Outside of playing Speedroids with Wind Witches, I feel like this was the best way to actually build this deck. So without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you can become part of the notification squad. Definitely give Its Tone some love down there in the comments down below because they requested this deck, and without them, this deck might not have been possible. And we really thank all the patrons down in the description below and all the patrons that are in the Discord. If you guys want to get into the Discord, definitely check out the Patreon so you guys can get into that. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.